All right, everybody, this is it. The final Gen Con report, I guess. You could consider this number 4 being my final thoughts on Gen Con. So let's get right into it. Oh, I'm rubbing my eye again. Everybody keeps pointing out that I'm rubbing my eyes. There's something wrong with my eyes. No, I'm just tired, and I've only got one hand. If I had both hands, I'd probably be rubbing both of my eyes right now just to keep on trucking for one more update. Although there'll be more coming. I'm uploading all my run through the Gen Con halls right now, so that'll be up. And of course, there will be videos galore, run-throughs galore for all the games I picked up. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let's see. There's the pile over there. So you can see it's a pretty good haul. I'm pretty pleased with it. Didn't come close to getting everything I wanted, but can't really complain there. I already know for a fact some of that stuff is excellent, awesome, because I got to play it at the show. Some of it I'm super stoked to play, so that's all pretty cool. And tomorrow morning when I wake up at some ridiculously early hour, I will be attempting to get all of that into those 2 bags over there. I have to admit, it doesn't really seem like an impossibility. I'm actually very optimistic. There's Old Red, by the way. That wheel right down, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, is currently being epoxied to try to get glued back together, so it will not fail me on the trip back. Wish me luck. Oh my gosh, the trip back. That's going to be insane. Very, very similar to the one I came out on. If I recall correctly, it's DC to London to Malta. But here's the tricky thing. I fly into London Heathrow, but then I fly out through London Gatwick. And so in between those two, I have to do an intercity transfer. You know, not just to another terminal, but to an entirely different airport during that 3-hour layover. So I am, to say the least, a little bit nervous about all that. Wish me luck is all I can say. That's going to be... Oh, just fingers crossed. Okay, but let's not... That's a problem for tomorrow. Let's have one nice restful evening first, and let's talk about what I got up to on the final day of Gen Con. Well, first of all, who knew that Gen Con on the final day on Sunday only goes till 4 in the afternoon instead of 6 like every other day. When I found that out just moments before I actually made it to the show, I went into full-on panic mode because there was still a lot of stuff I had to get done. And suddenly I had 2 hours less, so... but that was just the first of the problems. Although there weren't too many problems. Overall, the day went pretty well. Oh, somebody just texted me. What could that be? Who would be texting me now? Oh, yeah, I don't know. This temporary number I got, apparently somebody who speaks Spanish must have had it before I do, because I'm constantly getting all these Spanish spam texts. Should have known. All right, anyway, though, where was I? Oh, Spanish spam text. Okay, yes. So I had 2 hours less. But in spite of that, I still got to, I got to play 1 game today. I looked at 3 others, and I've got 2 more from days previous. So I've got 6 games to talk about for this final Gen Con report. And starting with the 3 that were all at Rio Grande Games. Now this is where I made my second big mistake. Rio Grande, I had been excited to get there all week long, and in fact I was kind of viewing it as I'm going to save the best for last because I was so stoked about Temporum, the new time travel game, time manipulation game from Dominic Vaccarino, the designer of Dominion. Hello. That's exciting. And also Roll for the Galaxy, which has been in, seems like development hell forever. And I've just been waiting, and they finally had it as demoable. Now, so they're on the 2nd floor, so I never quite got around there. But like I said, I wanted to wait till Sunday because I knew Sunday would be a quieter day. That's what everybody said. And I'd really be able to sit down and sink into them because these are 2 of the most exciting games of the entire show. So I get upstairs, and wouldn't you know it, there's a big old sign on Rio Grande's door saying, closed all day for Dominion Tournament. They had completely shut themselves down and weren't letting anybody in. And so I went in. I just went on ahead and ignored the sign, went in. Some guy walked up to me, tried to shush me out. In fact, he did get me out. And then I explained my sad tale of woe, how I had flown 6,000 miles halfway across the world to see these games. And, and all that. And they said, they said, well, sorry, there's nothing we can do. There's the Dominion tournament. We got to be quiet. We got to, it's a big deal, I guess. Congratulations to whoever won. I'll say Bob. Good job, Bob. And I said, okay, well, can I just get 5 minutes? Can I just see them? Can I just talk about them a little bit, just so I can feel and touch and look and long? And so they went inside. And the powers that be took pity on me because Jay, the head of Rio Grande Games, the grandfather really of modern designer board gaming in America, the reason that we all get to enjoy in America the games we've come to love. That's a whole story about the history of Rio Grande. It's really fascinating. You can learn more about it on the documentary Going Cardboard. Very worth watching. But as an aside, Jay himself came out stepped away from the tournament to take me through personally. Oh my gosh, it was so nice. I mean, he's a wonderful guy to take me personally through 3 games. Now, of course, I only went to look at 2, but I wasn't going to say no to Jay. Beggars can't be choosers. I was the idiot. I should have gotten there earlier. Who knew? I was just going to smile and be nice about whatever he showed me. And the first thing he actually showed me was Rattlebones, which I have to admit, I'd known it existed, but I hadn't paid much attention because not much information had been put out there. But it's a neat game. Now, bear in mind, these 3 games we're going to talk about, I did not actually get to play like everything else I've talked about. But Jay, sat there and answered my questions and talked to me probably for, gosh, it must have been over an hour, which I didn't think he expected to do. I promised, hey, can I just get it out in 5 minutes? And he easily spent an hour very patiently and very kindly going through all this stuff. So, Jay, I have to say thank you so much for putting up with my impertinence and stupidness for not getting there earlier. But anyway, so Rattlebones. I start talking about it, and okay, it's a roll and move, and wait, don't hit the stop button, don't browse away, because it's really kind of cool. The notion is everybody has, if I recall correctly, 3 dice, and these are big, gigantic, chunky dice, and you roll your die and you move clockwise around a track, and depending on where you land, you get certain new abilities that you can add to your dice. It is a dice builder in the truest sense of the word because during this game, you will personally build custom dice. And that is awesome. Now, to get an idea of what, because I don't think there's very many pictures of this game online, if you've ever seen the Lego board games that include that Lego die, the big chunky die where you can pull faces off of the sides and snap different ones on so you can make dice with basically customized combinatorial dice, right? Here is now a whole game built on that concept because as you go around the board, you've got these 3 dice, and when you get these power-ups, you decide what die you're going to put these power-ups on. And of course, you have to remove a side. You move your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, and replace it with all these different powers that let you manipulate how you move around the board, that let you re-roll, that let you interfere with your opponent, that give you all these kind of special abilities. And as you're doing this, as you're getting all these special powers, you can decide what die to put them on. Because remember, you have 3 dice, so you could like focus all getting you could devote 1 die to being your move die, where you take off all the low numbers and you just leave high numbers and put some special powers. And then you can make another die your low move die. If you really only want to move a couple of spaces, you take all the high numbers off and put some different powers on. It's a very cool system. And as he described it to me, I really kind of fell in love with the idea, and I'm bummed I didn't get a chance to play it, but it looked very, very pretty. And just the notion of taking that really, really cool idea of those. Although to be fair, I asked Jay, was this expired by the Lego dice? And he just kind of smiled in a kindly way and said, oh, no. They've actually been working on this idea for years, long before the Lego stuff ever came out. But, there's somebody out there who actually has a patent on the notion of customizable dice. So they had to work with him, and that guy had a heart attack and wouldn't return their emails for a year because he had a heart attack. So it took quite a while to get Rattlebones to where it is, but apparently it and the other two games I'm about to talk about are all coming out this year. Within the next couple months, Jay was hopeful. Although Jay is famous for always saying they'll come out when they're ready. So we'll see when they're actually ready. But I just thought that was a really cool idea in Rattlebones. I'd really love to give it a go. Every time you play, you build different dice. Neat. A real dice builder. Okay, so the next thing he showed me was one of the two I was super stoked about, Temporum, from designer Donald X. Vaccarino. And this game, I am kind of bummed because I didn't it's a time travel game. And of course, time travel can be very complex. It can be very mind-bending. It can, go into all kinds of crazy directions. And I get the impression this game does, and I kind of walked away not really knowing what to think. I knew it was interesting and exciting, and honestly, I just did not want to, overstep my bounds because Jay was already being such a sport anyway. So, I could have really drilled down on a lot of stuff. But here's what I do know. Like any good Donald X. Vaccarino game, it's all about startup variability because you have a whole bunch of cards, and you at the beginning of the game you lay out these cards. A small portion of all the cards that are in the game. Let's see, what was it? I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or maybe it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It was either 7 or 10 because there's a pyramid. Cards, fewer cards, one card all the way at the top. And every time you play, you're going to get a random assortment of these cards. And all these cards represent different temporal possibilities of what could happen during the timeline that this game covers. And so all these cards get laid out, all these different things that could happen, and then as part of setup, a core path is defined and declared using these little arrows to indicate the way time actually went, what really happened. Right? Okay, so you picture you got a pyramid of cards, and you've got like little connectors tracing a path from the top of the pyramid all the way down to the bottom. And then what happens is the players are time travelers basically, and they can use their abilities to move from card to card, and they could follow the official timeline. They could move around to alternate time scenarios, and a big part of the game is trying to change what really happened, because if you make a particular move and change what really happens, and somebody else was in the correct timeline, all of a sudden they're in the wrong timeline that didn't really happen anymore, and they have to adjust. Now, that sounds really cool. I was left with more questions than answers on this one, I'm sorry to say, but again, that's not unexpected considering it's time travel, but I remain excited about this game. Jay was being a mensch. I just couldn't push my luck on that, particularly because I was desperate to spend time talking to him about the third game he showed me, Roll for the Galaxy. Now, this is a dice game inspired by Race for the Galaxy. Tom Lehman, the original designer of Race, worked on it. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the designer, but the official designer on Roll for the Galaxy is a new designer who has worked with Tom on all his Race expansions. So this guy, let's see, I'll actually start trying to look it up while I'm talking. That would have been smart to do before I started talking, huh? Yeah, you don't really expect that from me, hopefully. Anyway, Roll for Galaxy. Alrighty, we'll wait for you. I'm uploading all these videos, so it's going to take a little bit. Oh, there we go, Roll for the Galaxy. So, like I said, Tom's been involved, and he's had a close partnership working with, come on, give it to me, with Wei-Ha Huang. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have looked that up. I have no idea how to pronounce his name, but I'm just going to call him Wei. He's worked very closely, and my gosh, they've come up with something so special. It's kind of tricky here because I think Roll for the Galaxy might be the game of the show. While everybody's going on and on about XCOM and on about Imperial Settlers and on about King of New York and all that, upstairs, quietly and very patiently, very maturely, Rio Grande was rolling out the game that definitely, and playing, I can't believe I didn't go there sooner and play this game, because, oh my gosh, every word out of Jay's mouth as he described the gameplay just made me giddy. I'm not. No, okay, I'm not gonna be able to do it justice. First of all, I'll assume you know Race for the Galaxy. You know the basics. And a lot of the basics are there. The true feel of Race is there, but this is a streamlined Race for the Galaxy. And if I had to slugline this, if I had to give you the one-sentence elevator pitch, I would call it Streamlined Race for the Galaxy meets Fresco meets Kingsburg, maybe? Okay, I can't quite do it, but here's the deal. It's a dice game, obviously, roll for the galaxy, and your dice represent workers, kind of like Kingsburg. You're going to roll your dice, you're going to assign them to different cards in your tableau. Or, I'm sorry, no. Okay, here's what you're going to do. Here's the Fresco part. All right, first of all, everybody has a shield. And behind that shield, they put a list of all the different actions a player can do. And they might sound familiar to Race fans. There's Explore, there's Produce, there's Trade. Almost all of the core actions, although some of them have been changed a little bit to work with the dice and all of that. So, but you take this list of commands, you put it behind your shield, and then you roll your dice in secret. And the dice that come up can correspond to those different actions. So you might get a lot of Explore, and also some of the dice faces that come up, you can assign them wherever you want. So you have a lot of flexibility. And so you and everybody else are secretly planning not just one action to take like Race, but depending on what you rolled, potentially a whole bunch of actions. But like Race, there is still the opportunity to follow other players when they do an action. So there is a lot of cool stuff that goes on, but eventually everybody basically makes their plans in secret. And this is the Fresco part where you place your workers in secret, and then everybody reveals at the same time. And then you're just like, oh my God, I thought you were going to do that. But you didn't. You did the other thing. You're completely broke. You know you needed to get more money. Why didn't you do that? Because I needed to do that, and I thought I'd follow you. All of that stuff. Oh, it's awesome. I'm so excited. It works so well in Fresco. And, as Jay was just like doing little demo stuff, I was just like, I want those dice. I want to do this. I want to make those decisions. It's so cool. But anyway, so once you make those decisions, you reveal, you're going to do the same basic stuff you do in dice. This is a intergalactic planet empire expansion game where you get new planets to add to your empire, and that gives you new abilities, and these abilities can be activated with dice. It's really interesting that there's more you can do with the dice than just assign them to the commands. You can also assign them to your cards. You can also, in certain circumstances, use dice to re-roll other dice. There's a lot of fun stuff going on, and actually Jay, he gave a lot of time. He must have talked about it, and because I just kept asking him questions and about the history of the development of it. I was just going full on fanboy, and he was telling me the history of it. It was just wonderful and lovely, and all around us this big Dominion tournament was going on, all these the most serious games of Dominion I have ever seen, and we're just over there in the corner, both of us just kind of whispering, and it was just wonderful. It was one of my highlights of the show. I loved meeting him. He was a lovely man, and then on top of that, he got me so stoked. I cannot wait for Roll for the Galaxy to come out. Okay, well, sorry I don't have any hands-on report there, but again, that's on me. If I had just gotten up there, I had 3 days to get up there. I just had no idea. But all right, I'm just glad I got in it all. So, all right, moving on. Now, I talked about this in the previous ones that I wanted to kind of do a little report about digital integration into board games, because to me, I think right now, board games are getting better and better all the time. There's constantly new exciting stuff all the time. Clever new ideas, reworking old ideas. It's a golden age right now. But to me, there are two great frontiers that have just started to be explored. One is persistence. The notion that after you finish a session playing a game, that game is changed forever. Now, it was introduced in Risk Legacy, although that wasn't the first game that did it, I believe, but it was popularized and everybody's really stoked about it. And so after that, you got Pathfinder, and I think over time we're going to see more and more and more of this. I'm so stoked. And in fact, I picked up Shadowrun Crossfire. I'm a little bit nervous about that game because I don't like the Shadowrun cyberpunk weird science fiction / fantasy future that it's set in. I don't care for that setting at all. But that's another game that really pushes permanence. You'll be hearing about it soon after I get back home and I actually play it. But sorry, this is not about that. I just want to say, there's two big frontiers. One, permanence. Number two is digital. I, having worked in the video game industry for almost 2 decades, am very, very excited about this. I know a lot of people are worried. A lot of people are nervous. And, you know, and that's fair enough. I understand. But, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. There is so much that can be done. And so, with the introduction of digital, and none of it means that we have to give up on what makes board gaming so special. The human connection. People, truly interacting with each other. Not, forget about whether they're punching or stealing or any of that, but just, being together and sharing an experience. None of that stuff has to go away. I hear people saying, yeah, well, isn't this going to lead to everybody sitting around a table just looking at their iPad playing a board game? And I said, well, you can already do that. It's called a video game. That's not what anybody's talking about here. We're talking about making sure everything we love about board games is sacrosanct. No one's going to touch that. It's just about enhancing it. And there's so many things that can be done. And so I'm going to talk about 3 games that I've seen now at Gen Con this year that are approaching it in radically different ways. And the important thing is, none of these games will in any way, shape, or form hurt what makes, in my opinion, having seen them, having sat down, having talked to the designers, in all 3 cases, I talked to designers at great length, and I'm very confident that we have a brave, exciting, digital / analog future. It's just going to be awesome. So let's talk about, first of all, I'll start with Consequential, which I did play today. This is a game coming from Asmodee Games, and it's been in development for a long time, longer than I thought. It's been in development for over a decade. As I talked to the designer Chris at great length about this, and the inspiration he had for it, and all the trials and tribulations he's gone through. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just here to talk about the game right now. But okay, it's a co-op game. It's set in this fantasy realm where it's kind of like a nexus, a joining of all the different dimensions of the galaxy. Now, I don't know much. I have to admit, first of all, this could be a heavy spoiler filled report on this game, and I'm not going to get into spoilers, because when I was talking to them, they were very casually saying, oh yeah, in the 3rd act this happens. I'm like, oh, don't tell me that, I don't want spoilers, don't spoilers. So I'm not going to spoil anything for you. And as soon as I started happening, I started saying, hey, give me less details. I want to experience the story. Don't tell me at all. But anyway, so that's why I'm a little bit vague on some of the stuff. But there's this fantasy world that is kind of a nexus of dimensions, and it's in trouble, as is so often the case with these fantasy worlds. And players are working cooperatively to keep it safe and keep it going, and play through a multi-chapter campaign where what you do, or where you continue to build, going from one chapter to the next to the next. Although every chapter is very replayable, because this is a really, really cool clock. Before I get into the digital, let me just talk about the game itself. Okay, like I said, it's cooperative. Play at the beginning of the mission. The mission itself tells you what locations are available to the player, and so there's a bunch of location cards. We lay them out, and then we build I think it was called the Tempest deck, or I'm thinking Temporum now. But the Consequential deck, or the Consequence deck, or something like that. Yeah, so that deck is built by putting cards in that are associated with the locations that we can travel in a given mission. And then on your turn, what happens is a consequential card is drawn. It's generally some kind of item that is associated with one of those locations, and it gets put on that location. And then we ourselves are a bunch of little pawns, and we can move around this grid of cards from location to location. And what we're trying to do is collect these cards that keep coming up. And do other stuff. There's a bunch of other stuff we can do as well. We can use our own special powers and whatnot. But we need to collect these cards to basically fight off whatever the encroaching problem might be, because the mission I played today, there were rifts ripping apart space-time, and so we had to collect these items and play them to certain spots on the board so that they could seal the rifts. But here's the tricky thing. There's like the entire board is a circular clock with 12 spaces, and there's a piece moving step by step by step. As soon as it's your turn, it goes from 1 to 2, and then it's my turn, it goes from 2 to 3, and so on. And it's kind of marking a countdown for us. And wherever the current hand is, wherever it's pointing, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever, that is the only place we can play one of these defensive cards onto the board. And we have to get the right cards into the right positions, so relative to where these different rifts have opened up. But here's the tricky thing. When we successfully collect these cards, we have a problem because we want to keep them for ourselves because they give us very special abilities. And if we keep them for ourselves, we're not using them to fight the rifts. If we use them to seal the rifts, we're not getting the special abilities. So now that just works. It very much worked. Oh, I didn't mention also, the game is very dice-driven. On your turn, after one of these new cards comes out, you roll some dice. And this is another dice worker placement game where you have your own little action board where you can place the dice there to initiate different types of actions you can do. You can move around, you can try to collect cards, you can deploy cards, you can use your special abilities. If you've gotten cards previously, you can activate the powers on them with just the 3 dice you have. In some cases you can re-roll dice, all that kind of stuff. If it turns out you rolled dice and they just weren't any good, you can bank those dice so they may be used later on a turn when maybe they'll help more. And one of the cool things is you can bank those dice to everybody. This is a cooperative game. And if we know, it's my turn now, but next up, we know their special power requires a 1. I could go on ahead and bank that 1 so they can use it, and then they'll have my die in addition to their own on their turn. So that's a very, very cool system right there. And it really led to immediately a lot of collaboration between me and the other people who were playing the game. Really liked it a lot. But then here's the tricky thing. As these cards are coming out, it forms a timer. And when that deck gets completely empty, we move on to the lightning round, for lack of a better term, where all the defenses we put into place trying to seal the rifts, well, they get called upon to actually seal the rifts. But here's the thing. Chances are we won't have had enough time to get all our defenses in exactly the right time, in exactly the right place. And when phase 2 starts, the timer starts. Now we're running out of time, and this gets a little bit into the digital app, but I'll come back to that. But we have to race against the clock, continuing to do the same actions we've been doing up till now with some slight modifications, but with the added pressure of the whole world falling down around us. Now, one of the things we could have done while we were in the first phase, the turn-based part, in addition to getting these cards with special powers, we can also get surges. And the more surges we collect as a group, the more likely we are to win, because during the second half, the time phase, we can spend one of these surges and everybody simultaneously gets to re-roll their dice, because you'll roll your dice and, well, crap, I didn't get what I need, but you got what you need. Can I bank to you of this and that and the other thing? Should we do another surge so I can get some stuff? No, wait till I'm doing. And there's all this back and forth talk, and what you're trying to do is finish the job you started. And it's very, very cool. So anyway, that's the mechanics of basically the analog game. And now let's talk about the app. First of all, it functions as a timer. And it's a programmable timer, which is really nice. So that you could specify, what do you call it? You could specify easy, medium, or hard difficulty. So how powerful the surges are and stuff like that. Now, the designer, Chris, freely admits, you know what, if you don't have an iPad or an iPhone or an Android or a laptop or a computer, or electricity, or whatever your situation might be, that's cool. You can use a sand hourglass, you can use your kitchen egg timer, whatever. You can use your watch. You can count to 1,000. This is it simplifies the game a little bit, but that's not what the app is all about for him. What the app is all about, what digital tries to bring into Consequential, it's all about the storytelling. This is a game that has a big, epic, multi-act story that the designer's been working on for over a decade. It's been a part of his life. It's a story he's wanted to tell, and this game is his avenue for telling the story. But he's so passionate about the story and the cast of characters that they've created, and the situations they've come in, and the secrets and the mysteries and all that. He doesn't want to leave that story to reading flavor text on cards that you draw. He wants players to truly immerse themselves in the story. The characters we play are not just throwaway characters. They are characters who have special meaning and significance in the story if it were actually written as a book. At one point, he actually tried to write this as a book, and he's turned it into an interactive experience instead. But I asked him, well, Mice and Mystics, right? Couldn't you just go on ahead and write all this stuff down and, not use the app as an interactive storytelling device? Because it's really, really cool. When you're in the first phase and you're trying to collect the right cards and trying to play them to the right areas, you can do certain actions, complete certain actions that the app will tell you, have you done that action? Well, then you need to watch this scene, because based on what we do, and we might not do that action, so we might not see that scene, and we may or may not learn certain elements, certain backstories to the characters, stuff like that. Depending on our actions, the app will tell us different elements of the story. And again, Chris freely admits this could be done with, Tales of Arabian Nights book. It could be done with a series of cards. It could be done a lot of ways. But he wants you to be engrossed. He wants you to hear the voices. He wants the character that you play to truly come to life. You know who it is. You know how they talk. You know what their sense of humor is. And that's something that board games generally don't do. Like I said, Mice and Mystics is a really good example. It tries really hard to be very atmospheric, and it does a wonderful job. It tells a lovely fairy tale bedtime story. And it's a lot of reading to do that, a ton of reading. And maybe not all players want to do that. And so all this app does is it replaces that with a multimedia story presentation where you get to where you get to be entertained. Because when you trigger certain things in the game says, hey, let me tell you a little bit more about what that did. Not just in game terms, because the game itself is very solid, but in story terms, in this overarching grand adventure. The kind of reminded me of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, with people from everyday life getting sucked into this world and becoming the saviors and all that kind of stuff. Very, very cool. Very, very nice. And in fact, Chris said for people who just don't want to touch the digital, no problem. He fully expects that they will make the storytelling available to anybody. You'll be able to download PDFs and read chapter B3 if that's the way you prefer. He has no problem. But for him, he is very, very passionate about putting his story first, or putting his story in a new and different way that will engage the audience. And I don't see why anybody would have a problem with that. I'm doing this whole digital thing because I've seen so many folks on Board Game Geek just react so negatively to what I think is so amazing and exciting and fun. Here's this game, Consequential. It's a really cool co-op, a great collaborative puzzle to solve every time you play, based on what cards come out. And all it wants to do is go the extra mile and tell you a story with a cool multimedia app. What's wrong with that? That's great. So, so anyway, that's Consequential. That's one example of how to use, digital to enhance the story that you were told in a game. I think that's fantastic. Nobody's complaining about the fact that Plaid Hat Games actually hired an actor, everybody's favorite madman, to voice MP3s of all the Mice and Mystic dialogue, and that's fine. This is just another version of that. So hopefully Consequential will maybe change some hearts and minds about one potential use for digital. But now let's talk about another one. Second game I want to talk about is World of Yoho, which has been flying under the radar. I didn't really know anything about it before I came to the show, and I was just walking by the booth and I literally did a double take. I did a what? And immediately, just beelined over to that table because I just had to learn more. Now, here's the deal. This is a Pirates of the Caribbean style, not the license, style game with a huge, beautiful board of, the Caribbean Sea. I think it's Caribbean. It might have been a make-believe version. I didn't really look that closely if they were like real islands or if it was just kind of like a fantastical make-believe. But anyway, it's still, it probably is fantastical make-believe, because actually one of the things is the pirates of this game, they're all anthropomorphized animal pirates, and the ships themselves are anthropomorphized ships. So you could be the monkey captain who rides on the shark pirate vessel, and that shark pirate vessel you have is really, really good at combat. Or you could be the the bird that is really is the turtle, who is actually capable of moving on the sea or on the land. So he doesn't have to sail all around islands. He can just literally sail up to it and then walk across the island and get on going. It looks like a sweet, charming, lovely world. It's called the world of Yoho. How can it not be? Wonderful art. And so you got to picture this big, gigantic board with grid lines all over it. And what you do is, you take this. You take your smartphone. No, don't tune out. There are options available to you if you don't necessarily have a smartphone, but the game's going to be at its best when all the players who are playing have a smartphone. And what they do is they install the Yoho app. The Yoho app, connects to any other smartphones. Goes across boundaries. Basically just doing a Wi-Fi connection, so that all the phones, if you and I are playing this game, both our phones are synced up with each other. And then we take the phone and we put it on the board, because all the grid lines are sized so that a smartphone fits inside it. And this is your ship. This is your magical sea turtle ship, pirated by the parrot captain that you get to play or whatever. And if you look at the screen, basically when you first put your ship on the board, it tells you what space to put it on, so that it can calibrate where your ship is and keep track of where it is. So you put it down on the board and you see on the screen the board. So it just looks like it's kind of like an augmented reality thing. You see the board, but on top of the board you see your ship, and you see nice little animated seagulls flying through the air, and you see waves, and you just see this beautiful, lovely, colorful little world come to life. It's like a little window you look through, and when you look through this window, it goes from being a static board to a magical place. It's gorgeous. Everybody who walked by that booth, I can't imagine there's anybody except the most grumbly, diehard, anti-digital player who doesn't want to walk over there, who doesn't just put a smile on their face when they see this. When they see this little window you get to look through, and it's just like, but anyway, so what you do is, let's talk about the gameplay though. You put it on, and it uses the accelerometer to know that you move from this zone to this zone, and this zone to this zone. And as you move around, because that's one of your actions, you can move, you can attack, you can interact, you can do all those kinds of standard actions. And so you see, the view move as you move around. And you go to ports to buy stuff. You get secret missions that nobody else knows about that are maybe delivering things. Maybe sailing to specific places on the board. Because here's the thing. There's very few components in this game. The phone takes care of everything. If you get a mission to go to the southwest corner of the board because there's a kraken destroying merchant vessels, your phone knows about it automatically. You don't know exactly where it is, but your phone and everybody else's phone that's networked to your phone automatically know and secret where it is. And nobody had to be the game master. It just takes care of it automatically. So you go over there, and maybe other people figure out what you're doing and they go over there, or maybe they get attacked by the kraken, and then you find out where the kraken is and you can get over there because you've got the mission to destroy it, and hopefully they don't. So the game can make all these decisions for you, and surprise you, and in a very natural and organic way, not in a very structured and regimented, way like, say, Pandemic, where, okay, every turn we know we will always draw a card. We know these are the three things that could happen when we draw the card. Let's draw the card and see what happens. In this game, the game can constantly be surprising you based on, what missions it throws your way. Now, there's other cool stuff too. I really like some stuff that, okay, so I've got my ship, and if ever I go into port, it says, okay, pick me up on the screen, and I pick it up like this, and again, it recognizes that when I go from this to this, the accelerometer, okay, now I'm looking at it, and you can't see what's on my ship. Only I can see it. And so it fills my screen with all kinds of secret information. First of all the kind of stuff I could buy or sell. Everybody doesn't get to know what I'm buying and selling. Maybe it's going to be different when you go there versus what I go there. So I can, now, to a certain extent, of course, these are things you can do with analog. You can draw cards randomly and keep them face down and choose one and all that stuff. But this just simplifies and streamlines all of those things that could make a game very fiddly, very Ameritrashy, and very much a turnoff. And instead, it makes it a joy to interact with all these things. This is a great way to streamline all the obnoxiousness of an Arkham Horror. Just imagine if Arkham Horror could, without giving up, could make all the monsters act on their own, and while you're at it, turn them from just like static little pieces of cardboard into actual monsters that make noise and roar at you and stuff like that as they move around the board. That's what this does. But anyway, so you can take it up, you get secret information, and so you buy some stuff, you get missions, you hire crew members, all the stuff you do, and then you put it back down, and it automatically recognizes it's flat, and then you can sail away. Now this is cool. Remember, all the phones are networked. There is a memory element to this because, like I said, nobody knows what I bought until they run into me. Maybe I'm carrying a lot of equipment I can use to board enemy ships or to fire at enemy ships or to basically escape. Nobody knows exactly what I got. But if you go into that port after I did, hey, the shops have a bunch of different stuff for sale. But you can bribe the shopkeepers and they will tell you what I bought because the networked phones remember. And so now that's very, very cool. And again, you could replicate that by, but it'll become very unwieldy very soon. That these shops are constantly dynamically changing, but with a sense of permanence, what their inventory is. But they're remembering stuff that happened back at the beginning of the game. How would you do that without cards? I would have taken that card. There'd have to be some kind of dummy card so that some other player could find out what the card was I bought. Games can't do that. This can do it. And what it doesn't do is break your immersion, break your interaction with other players. It just enhances it and creates new exciting opportunities. So, as Etienne, the designer, was explaining all the cool, fun stuff. Oh, yeah. So, two ships. This is a pirate game. You might get a mission to straight out attack another ship. Nah, Jen and I aren't crazy about that, but c'est la vie. What happens is, again, both players that are involved take their cards up, they start secretly making actions, and then it gets revealed. But here's the other thing. The other players on the board, they pick up their phones as well, and they can make wagers on who's going to win. And they can secretly send resources to somebody if they have a reason to do it, if they maybe have an alliance with that. Maybe they have a secret mission to protect that other player. So, oh, no, I'm just betting on you, or I'm just checking my inventory. And I send the cannon, the pumped up cannons over to you, and then I put a bet on you. Boom! How are you going to do that analog without turning this game into a ridiculously complex rigmarole? This is the kind of stuff digital can do. World of Yoho blew me freaking away. It came out of nowhere. He had so many cool clips. I've just scratched the surface. And I talked to him a couple days ago. I don't remember all of them, but I just, he was talking to me and several other people, and we were just a bunch of grown men, giddy as schoolgirls, just smiled and just, and could we do this? Could we do that? I was reminded of, working with Peter Molyneux, who has a singular ability to capture the imagination and get people excited. I walked away from that table so excited about this game. Particularly, he's also talking about taking the same basic technology and using it for, educational titles to get kids excited about traveling the real world and learning about stuff, because there's still the tactile element. You still touch something, but it's something that's alive. It's something that takes on life of your own. And I just can't stress it enough. This is a portal that brings your static board to life. That is awesome. Oh, now I should say, by the way, of course, some players out there, they might not have 4 iPhones. That's totally reasonable. I totally get that. And so what you can do is, the game will have an app. It will require you have at least one smart device or a computer or whatever. at the table, and you can instead put pirate ships that are tied to every player, and when a player needs to do their action, they can pass, you know, the smartphone or whatever it is from player to player and do all the secret stuff as normal, and you can you know, and then it just becomes kind of like a bookkeeping account, and you lose the other stuff. But so this will require an app, but it's very, very flexible, and I thought that was very smart too, because it's true, not all families have everybody with a smartphone. Me and Jen, we both have iPhones. I'm super stoked about this. I might even put aside my extreme hatred for, you know, because this really, well, anyway, you get the idea. Wonderful world of Yoho. And now finally, let's talk about the big guns. Let's talk about XCOM. Now, I didn't get a chance to play it, although I spent a lot of time watching people. You know, Anton from FFG gave me a lot of time talking about it in development. Eric Lang, the designer, was very gracious. He talked to me for a long, long time, and he got really into the nitty gritty, because we're both designers, and we both come from, you know, interactive, you know, digital background, and so, you know, we really talk shop, and I had a great time. Eric, thank you again. It was another highlight. I really enjoyed talking with you. I enjoyed talking with all the designers I talked with. It was great. That's probably my favorite thing about this show. Not playing the games, but talking shop. It's been so long since you know, I've done that professionally. It was really fun. But anyway, so I got to talk with Eric a lot. Now, you don't need me to tell you what this game is about or how it works. It's an asymmetrical co-op game. The aliens are coming. It's, I'm going to say, loosely inspired by XCOM. And Anton of, you know, FFG, you know, he freely copped to that. You know, they decided right up front, to heck with it. You know, yeah, we could just try to very dutifully recreate the board, you know, the computer game experience in cardboard. But you know what? That's been done. There's a lot of games that scratch that itch. Let's do something different. Let's see what else we can do with this license while staying true to the spirit of it. I respect that. I think that's great. That's probably how I would have approached it. Because you know what? Galaxy Defenders does XCOM brilliantly. You want that? Go play Galaxy Defenders. You want something really new and fresh? Try this game, because the asymmetry, all the different player roles that are, you know, intertwined, everybody's kind of playing their own little mini game, and yet everybody is so symbiotically attached to everybody else. You know, Eric stressed over and over and over again that in spite of the fact that there is an app kind of running the game, players will lose terribly if they don't talk to each other. The entire game is designed to have everybody, tons of crosstalk. Well, okay, you need that, but wait, you need that, you know, and everybody like clamoring, okay, you need to give me this, but I can't give you that, but I'm working this for him, you know, and that's what they want. If you are a quiet, serious, taciturn group of players, don't get this game. This is a game with lots and lots of table talk, and again, the app enhances that. So now let's talk about the app. You know, there is one of the 4 rows. Now, I don't remember any of the titles, you know, like General Commander, and but, you know, Eric and I talked about it not in terms of the actual game shipping tiles, but their function. And there's kind of the war guy who's basically in charge of deploying the, you know, the soldiers and whatnot. There is the scientist guy who's in charge of doing all the research that, you know, and he feeds to all the different players. If every player has different needs, he's got to prioritize, well, do I give you some technology, or you some technology, or use technology? There is the CEO, basically, who is running the entire operation, who keeps track of what, you know, of everybody's resources, who keeps track of the XCOM Defense Force's relationship with the rest of the world, and is responsible for ensuring that everybody can do their job. You know, so he's the, you know, he's Mr. Moneybags, and you know, the scientist can't do anything if he doesn't get the money. The soldier can't go to war if he doesn't get the money. You know, all that kind of stuff. But what I was most interested in was the 4th role. The one player, only one of the 4 players interacts with the app. And it's funny, I mean, they didn't necessarily deny this. That player kind of, have you ever seen the movie Galaxy Quest? Remember Sigourney Weaver's role? Her whole purpose was to basically stand on the bridge and repeat what the computer says. At first glance, that's what it looked like this last role is, because this is the interesting thing. The app could have been very elaborate. I talked with Eric a lot about the choices they made with this, that, you know, the app gives orders to players, you know, based on random, unpredictable events, because the app represents the invading aliens. I actually, at one point, I asked Eric, so is the app a malevolent DM? And he said, yes, that's exactly. They have worked very, very hard so that this app is so smart and so responsive to every little thing the players do, to if the players choose to play on hard or medium, to the player count, to everything. And it has, if you want to try to replicate what this app would do, Eric said, well, yeah, you could totally do it. If you put 20 individual decks of cards that are constantly shifting content, that are constantly being affected by one another, and assign some player to constantly manipulating them and shifting cards back and forth between them, and then running other decks that manage all the cards. It could be done, but it would be worse than ASL. It would be worse than a Phil Eklund. It would be the most ridiculously overwrought, complex game, and nobody would be able to play it ever. The app replicates. I mean, people always talk about people who are anti-co-op. Like, yeah, I don't want to play co-op. I want to play against a real opponent. Somebody who thinks, somebody who strategizes, somebody who anticipates my move. I don't want to play against a random deck of cards. I want to play against an opponent. I want to play against a thinking person. That's what this app is. This app monitors everything you do. This app has its own goals and agendas that it is thinking about, that it switches back and forth between. This app manages a host of different races, of alien races, that all have their own special abilities, that all have their own special ways of doing things, and decides where and when to deploy them. And it does it when you least expect it. It does all this stuff. It does all the stuff that a really good, human player would do, but it lets all the players work together to overcome it. Now, but here's the cool thing. The app, if the app is going to do something like, the scientist, now I'm making this up, but, I made this up with Eric, and he said, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that could happen. The scientist, he did all his research, he thought it worked out, he assigned it to the CEO so the CEO could make more money, and the app is made aware of this, and then, the app runs this through its algorithm and decides to shift things up and said, oh, you know what, it turns out your research was bogus. It failed, and now suddenly the scientist is on, and now, it's been reset, but now he doesn't have as many resources, and he has to completely change and come up with a plan B. And he has to do that in real time, because this game has a turn-based component and a real-time component, much like Consequential, actually. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be in the game, but the app would have chosen to do that, based on the situation, based on, all these different things it's tracking. But what it doesn't do, it does not say in a robot voice, scientist, you have failed, you blah, blah, blah. It just puts it on the screen. And it's this fourth player's job to monitor the app and tell everybody what's happening. And I think that is brilliant. It humanizes the app. It gives that one player a very important job because they're kind of like the project manager. They themselves are not responsible for getting anything, but they are the person that is responsible for monitoring the world, the app, and letting everybody know, oh my God, this has happened. Oh my God, we have this problem over here. Oh my God, we have this problem over here. The app doesn't do it. A human does it. The human, it's literally a human interface. You ever watch Person of Interest? Spoiler alert for how Root is the interface. Sorry if you don't watch that, but that's what it's like. It's so awesome. This is the role I think that would be the most fun to play because you're very involved with everybody. Doing. You're constantly have to watch what they're doing because you have to keep track of what's going on, but you have to keep track of the app too because the app is throwing information at you. Sometimes it's throwing information you need to know because hey, it's something that's messed up. Sometimes it drops hints and it only keeps them on the screen for a little bit and they disappear. And maybe you missed it. And if you missed it, the app says, ho, 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 ho. That stupid player didn't notice that we were sneaking in across the North Pole because it gave you the hint. But if you weren't paying attention, you missed it. Because you're too busy paying attention. You're too busy giving everybody orders or telling everybody what they need to do. Oh my gosh, that's so brilliant. Now that player, it's not fair to say that they're the Sigourney Weaver character because they do have their own responsibilities. They basically monitor the satellite network that is, keeping track of alien movements, and they've got to, maintain that and deal with issues, and they've got their own little mini game they're playing. But I thought that was the single most brilliant thing when it was made clear to me because I saw it. I'd seen people demoing it earlier, and they had just there's one guy always working the app, and he's basically reading back, and that was my first thought is, well, gosh, what is that all about? But then when I was talking to Eric, It's just so brilliant. It's so smart because no human component of the game is lost at all. And that's what that's what a lot of people seem to be worried about. That digital will destroy analog. When it doesn't, it can enhance it because it can allow a straight, exciting, pure cooperative game. This doesn't have to be a game where there's any player as a malevolent DM trying to destroy everybody, unlike, say, Middle-earth Quest. This is a game where everybody gets to work together in symbiotic, very, very tight, very, very social ways. But it gives you an opponent that has never been able to be created before. It will be a totally new experience, and it couldn't be done without the app. And it's awesome. And, it's not the future. It's just one future. It's just one more tool in the toolbox that designers will have. Designers have dice. Designers have cards. Designers have counters. Designers have spinners. Designers have draw bags. And now designers have smartphones. It's just one more tool that they can use to create wonderful, memorable, social, interactive, human experiences. And that's why I think it is such an exciting future. Anyway, folks, that's 3 games that I got to see up close and personal, and I am bouncing off the wall over all of them. I love that they're each doing it a completely different way. They're each innovative in their own ways, and I just couldn't be more excited. So anyway, that's it, folks. Now, this is Final Thoughts for Gen Con. You can watch. I'm actually uploading, and I'll be editing, splicing together, hopefully within the next day, maybe 2 at the most. I'll have my run through where I talked a bit more about the show and what I thought and what my experiences were and how it compared to Essence. So I'm not going to do that much right now. You'll see that in a few days. But overall, just in a nutshell, it was amazing. I met a lot of wonderful people. I got to hang out. I'm not even going to try and name everybody. It's just not fair, but I had some really very powerful and very personal communications. I made, I don't know, I'd like to say some really wonderful friendships just in these last few days, and I'm so thankful to everybody I got to hang out with, to everybody who helped me. Oh my gosh, Rhiannon of Spooning Meeples. I will give a shout out to her. I desperately want 5 Tribes. I'm sure you may have heard. 5 Tribes was one of the big hotnesses of the show. Days of Wonder was not ready. They were parceling them out every day, only 50 copies. My situation would precludes me from being able to get there in time. There was no way I was going to get it. I was not going to get that copy of the game. Rhiannon of the Spooning Meeples, which is an excellent show, by the way. Let me look up. Or, I'm just going to put a link to their show right there on screen. Go check them out. It's 2 wonderful, wonderful women who basically just get on Skype or Google Hangout, I guess, and talk about board games, and just have kind of goofy online adventures. And Rhiannon and Tiffany, I love both of them. I met both of them. I hugged one of them. Tiffany's not much of a hugger, apparently, if I recall correctly. Fair enough, no problem. I got a really good hug from Rhiannon, got an even bigger hug from the Undead Viking. Watch out, that man is serious about his hugs, as is Tim. There was a lot of hugs this week. But anyway, Rhiannon, thank you so much. Everybody, you got to check out Spooning Meeples. I am a big subscriber. I'm a big fan. Tiffany, the One Tar, she has her own series. Probably the most creative video blogger reviewer out there. She just has a little GoPro camera that's this big, and she can use it. She can film anywhere. She has done video reviews while riding roller coasters and on ski lifts, in airports around the country, and she's always entertaining. She's always smart. Rhiannon, I love her videos. Because more so than more so than myself, she has something to say. She says really interesting things. She has great observations about the hobby. And, I think they're very thought-provoking. And then when the 2 of them get together, it's just wonderful. So definitely, like I said, go check out Spooning Meeples. Rhiannon, thank you so much for getting me that copy of 5 Tribes. I'm happy to return the love. That was great. But anyway, so wonderful people. Of course, that's what everybody will say. That's what Gen Con's about. It's not about the games. It's about the people. And it's true. I got to agree with that. And I met so many people, so many fans. In fact, one of them who actually was wearing a Rahdo Runs Through t-shirt shows up. Actually, I kind of feel him up because I wanted to check out the shirt. It was got a little awkward, yeah, but again, you'll see that coming soon. And so many people coming up saying how much they love my videos, and that is so satisfying and gratifying to know that. Actually, one thing that I know a lot of people. I've always heard a lot of people appreciate it because my focus on me and Jen, kind of couples gaming, non-confrontational things that we can share and help build our relationship and make it stronger. So probably 70% of the people came up and told me that's why they love my show so much, and I never realized that. And so I just think that's great. It kind of fires up my engines even more to continue to do it because there's so many folks out there. It's so important. It's such a shame the board game industry doesn't quite realize just how important this niche is. Or I think maybe it's just a big niche for me and I'm a small fish in a big pond. Certainly there were plenty of times this week that I felt that way too for a number of reasons that I will not go into because the walls have ears. But anyway, and I met a lot. I met the Shut Up and Sit Down guys. I met the Board with Life guys. I met the Dice Tower guys. I joked with Paul for Shut Up and Sit Down. Yep, okay, I can cross this off my bucket list. And he said, well, oh, that's not a very good bucket list. And I said, yeah, it's pathetic, but it's all I got. It was just so great to meet all these people that provide me with so much entertainment. So I got to tell them how great. I'm just waffling now, but in a few hours I really should go to sleep because it's not going to be very long before I got to get up and head to the airport. And I already told you how much I'm looking forward to that. Wish me luck, folks. But that's it. That's Gen Con 2014. We'll see. Yeah, a lot of people ask, are you going to be back for 2015? Right now I'm thinking no, because I'm looking down the barrel of another 20 plus hour flight from hell. Ask me again in 9 or 10 months and maybe I will have reconsidered. But for now, that's it. I'm signing out. Hope you've enjoyed these. As always, let me know what you think. This is very different for me, this whole just testimonial thing to the camera. It's been fun, even if it's I might have to go get some more Americone Dream. Oh my gosh, have you tried Americone Dream? Can't get that in Europe. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Have a good day. Wait. No bye-bye. No bye-bye. I totally forgot. Now, actually, I may have been completely right. I may have already done this, but I'm just going to do it again, just to set the record straight. Huge thanks to my hosts with the most, Ben and Christy. They are a couple of local gamers living here in Indiana. Nicest folks you've ever met, and they, out of the goodness of their heart, took me into their home for a week. Didn't ask for a red cent, fed me, drove me, put up with me. I caused them a little bit of grief here and there, completely by accident, but it wasn't ideal. Just like being stupid and forgetting stuff, and they've been absolutely great, super troopers. I could not have asked for better troopers. I couldn't have made it through the week without them. So I gotta publicly declare mega thanks. And please, if anybody would like to thank them as well on my behalf, Christy, who is a very, very active person on Boardgame, I know, a great cosplayer as well. You can go check that out. Her Boardgame Geek username is C Marie, the letter C, because her name is Christy, and her middle name is Marie, C-M-A-R-I-E. Send her some geek gold. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I just can't thank them enough. So this is a public declaration. If there was more I could do nice for them, I would. If there's anything you guys can do, because they were the greatest. Jen actually made them a couple of really nice custom glass pieces. I know they like them, but it's not enough for what they've done for me this week. They were absolutely great. Thanks again. Also, a quick shout out to Joel Drive-Thru Review Eddie, who also helped me out immeasurably, in addition to Rhiannon. I had a bunch of stuff. Jen and I had some stuff we had sent here, because you can't get in Europe. And I didn't want to send them here to their house because, they're out at work and stuff like that. So I had them sent to the hotel that Joel Drive-Thru Review Eddie was staying at because, and just put in his name. And Joel was a trooper. He got all the stuff to me, tracked me down, and again, life would have been a lot more miserable without him. So I have always depended on the kindness of strangers, but hopefully these folks are not strangers anymore. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks again for watching. And I think now we can finally close the door on Gen Con 2014. Bye-bye. Do the bye-bye. Do the bye-bye. I don't know if anybody watched. But anyway, bye-bye.